Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
My name is Edward P. Joseph with Johns Hopkins SAIS, and it's really my special pleasure to welcome those of you online in the United States to this event here, this special event on Bosnia-Herzegovina after these crucial elections that just occurred the other day and on Sunday, October 2nd. And I'm especially pleased to be here on this panel with, next to me in this room, four of the most prominent and most intelligent and acute analysts and observers of the situation in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and equally so, joining us on the screen via Zoom is our other special guest, Mladen Ivanic, joining us from Montenegro. And in a moment, I'm going to hand the floor over to our host here in this stunning 500-year-old hammam here in Sarajevo, Zlatko Lagumdžija, who will formally welcome us. And Zlatko, let me just introduce for our audience, those watching in the United States, let you know who we have, just how prominent and a group of figures we have with us today to talk about this crucial election. We have Zlatko Lagumdžija, former prime minister, that is chair of the Council of Ministers, and foreign minister of Bosnia-Herzegovina, two-time foreign minister. We have Jakob Finci, president of the Jewish community and a former ambassador of Bosnia-Herzegovina. And Jakob, želim vam Yom Tov. Okay. As I mentioned on the screen, we will have Mladen Ivanic, former member and chairman of the presidency of Bosnia-Herzegovina. And as well, we have Ivo Komšic, I'm going in alphabetical order, former chairman of the House of Peoples of Bosnia-Herzegovina, the federal parliament, and former mayor of Sarajevo. So welcome, Ivo. And then last but of course not least, we have Krešimir Zubak, who is also former member of the presidency of Bosnia-Herzegovina and former minister for human rights and refugees in the state-level government there. So welcome, Krešo. We welcome you as well. So now let me hand the floor to Zlatko and welcome us here at the Adil Zulfkarpasic Center here in Sarajevo. Please.
Well, thank you, Joseph. For our friends who are watching us mostly in DC and someplace in some other parts of the world, I'll just do in the beginning in English. Of course, we are here in Bosniak Institute, and I want to thank you, Joseph, for coming here with SAIS, Johns Hopkins, with us to partner in this very interesting debate. I want to thank the President of Bosniak Institute, Mr. Fehim Škaljić, President of the board, who is here with us together with Director Professor Gavran Kapetanovic, who is director of this institution, just as you said, which is 500 years old. So we are here in a very interesting setting. Of course, this is the setting where we used to have a different discussions of the same type. With Jakica was present in some of those, Mladen was present in some of those, Ivo was present in some of those discussions under the umbrella of Bosniak Institute in partnership with Club de Madrid, Nizami Ganjavi International Center, Robert F. Kennedy Foundation. We had here heads and states of the governments from the region, and not only from the region. And this is the setting that is, for us, this type of conversation is something which we are very proud of. Of course, I just also want to thank to my dear friends who are here. And just as you said, Joseph, I mean, we are here 27 years after Dayton. Bosnia-Herzegovina remains in social, economic, and political crisis, and we will see where we are today, how we are going to proceed, what are options in front of us, and not only to be pessimist or optimist, but to say how realistically we can make some changes after we share the views on where we are, and to see not where we'll go on automatic pilot, but how we can jump in a driver's seat and do something regardless of the fact that we aren't here. Of course, I will stop in here, and I want to say that this 2 days ago event created a lot of changes, but at the same time, everything else remained the same. So we will see what are the changes and what the same can be changed in a positive direction.
Well said, Mr. Lagumdžija. And so now let me come to that point here, Zlatko. We're going to start our conversation. Let me review for those watching in Washington some of the key results, the biggest takeaways from the elections, and then we're going to dive into it here. We're going to address Zlatko's question, that very important question. Can there be any change in Bosnia-Herzegovina? Can this country finally emerge from paralysis? And we're going to come to that. Let me just give you a few of the headline marquee results. So we have from the elections, the first woman elected to the presidency of Bosnia-Herzegovina, that's Željka Cvijanović, as the Serb member of the Bosniak presidency. We have Denis Bećirović of SDP convincingly beating the longtime SDA leader, Bakir Izetbegović, while simultaneously the SDA did very well in the election. So while Bakir lost his seat, his party did fairly well, actually quite well otherwise. And then we have Ivo Komšic of Democratic Front, again won the Croat member of the presidency, that seat, over Bojana Krišto of HDZ. That's about, I believe, the fourth time that Željko Komšic has won that seat, which has produced contention here in the country. And then finally, as we will hear much more on this from Mladen Ivanic, we have contested results of the Republika Srpska presidency, in which the NSSD leader, Milorad Dodik, holds a lead of about 7,000 over 6 or 7,000 over the PDP's Jelena Trivić. And as with Bakir, we see that Milorad Dodik's personal total, his total is less than his party fared. So those, we're going to look at the results and discuss them. But as Lagumdžija mentioned, the overarching question here is, can these elections be a turning point? That's really the question. Is it possible? How? How could it possibly, could the government combine and form in a way that actually leads to long overdue progress? And if it's a turning point, what needs to happen for that? Let me finally remind everyone here, of course, of two significant moves by the international community here. So we had a decision on election night, that is, as soon as the polls closed, a major decision by the International High Representative Christian Schmidt on election changes, on changes to the election law and the Constitution and the Federation. And those proposed changes, which were leaked earlier in the summer, caused a lot of contention. But yet, we did not see at all the type of reaction to those changes now than we saw when the leaked version was put out in July. We haven't seen no protests, and the reaction by most figures has been muted. And then second, following this decision on election night by the High Representative, yesterday, the US government sanctioned two individuals. Fadil Novalić and Slobodan Stanković. And obviously the timing of these sanctions coming a day off after the elections was obviously not just a coincidence. So we can interpret that. And then finally, we should, of course, always bear in mind that these elections are not about the political figures, they're about the citizens of this country. And we should take note of the fact that the turnout has again gone down, both in the Federation and in Republika Srpska, gone down by about 5%. So voters registering their will at the ballot box, and some either by not turning out or, as we know, many have left the country. And I turn now here to our Jakob Finci, who's the co-applicant in the famous Jakob Finci case before the European Court of Human Rights, a case that the results of which, Jakob, have yet to be implemented. So before we turn to the others, Jakob, you have the floor to give your impressions on whether these elections, in fact, offer positive change for the country and its citizens. Please.
First of all, thank you for this invitation, and I'm glad to be able to speak with all of you. Naturally, for me, it's a little bit strange, and I feel a little bit strange to speak in my hometown city in English. I know that we have very good translators, and I think that it may be appropriate to use my own language and not English in this case. At least I just showed that I can speak even some Bosnian English, if not something better. Naturally, elections are behind us. But this was not something that we have been expecting without knowing what will happen. Results have been something like expectation. Few examples show that it was not everything done in advance, and that we can also sometimes think that, look, good guy lost election, or look, this idiot, he won so many votes, how it can happen. But this is Bosnian reality. The real surprise came 1 hour after the closure of the polling stations, because the High Representative passed 2 decisions changing federal constitution and changing Bosnian electoral law only in the part concerning Federation of Bosnia-Herzegovina and not the whole country. As in the explanation, High Representative said the state constitution is not even touched because he doesn't have a right to do this. This was something which was signed in Dayton. It's a part of the Dayton Peace Accord, and even High Representative cannot change it. But the other things he can change, and he made a lot of new changes in our federal constitution. It's hard on the first reading to say what is good and what is bad, who is a winner and who is loser with all these changes. At least one thing is good. All our political leaders agree in Brussels just a few weeks before elections that immediately after elections, they will sit together on the table, discuss electoral law, discuss even the federal constitution, and maybe to change some articles in the state constitution. But they gave them enough time, 6 months. And now 1 hour after elections, without expecting this, we got these changes. This will be one good step for our political leaders, because they will say, I'm not responsible for this. This has been imposed on us, and we cannot do anything. But naturally, they can do whatever they wish, because first of all, we should adopt these changes in our parliament. After that, we have a right to change this 100% if it's necessary, if we can agree. I know that this will be the real problem. How to agree, in which direction we should change electoral law, how to change constitution, how to give a right to all the citizens to be equal citizens of the country, to be able not only to vote, but also to compete for the seats, at least in the presidency and in the House of People, in the Parliament of Bosnia-Herzegovina. In federal parliament, this is accepted, but not in the state parliament, where the people who are declared as not member of any of the constituent people, and don't ask me to explain what does it mean to be constituent people, because even Webster vocabulary will not give you the right answer on this question. So now we are in the situation that we should do something for ourselves, to decide by ourselves. And sometimes our political leaders are not able to agree, even if today is Tuesday or Wednesday. So let's see what will happen next. But on the end, just to say that I'm satisfied that we finished the elections, we finished 1 month of the campaign, and now I hope that we'll start to live normally, even with all these abnormalities which our system is giving us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jakob. And now what I would like to do is turn from you and your points about whether there could be agreement on the changes you said, the changes that would finally see all rights for all citizens, the Sejdić, Finci, Zornić, Pilav, these cases, and turn that and other questions to Zlatko. And Zlatko, tell us, what is your takeaway from these elections? How do you see the results? Who do you see the winner and loser? And what does it mean for the country, for the changes that Jakob was just mentioning, the changes that the country desperately needs? Please.
I know that it is too early to make a final judgment because we don't have final results. Of course, we know final results in Bulgaria, we know final results in Brazil that happened the same day, and people are already moving on. But it will take a time before we find what are the final results of Bosnian elections, which is something that international community and High Rep could do much faster and much better if they acted in technical sense. But that's done. Let's hope that they will do that by next elections. But the figures that we have now, that we see right now at this stage, just to make clear where we are at. The biggest change is, and symbolical and substantial change, that Denis Bećirović walked into the picture. His first speech that was given on the night of his elections was very encouraging because he was talking about the things that are talking about unity of the country, that are talking about how to put together the people who are divided, who are crossing even political lines, not only ethical lines. That's a great thing. But I'll stop here with the good things because I think that major players who were running this country for previous 4 years, Dodik, SNSD, HDZ, SDA, and DF, through their leaders, they strengthened, they're now stronger than they were 4 years ago. Let's be serious. They stabilized their position. They strengthened the position. SDA hasn't been stronger in the last 20 years than now. They lost elections for the presidency, but we should not forget that. SNSD, Dodik party, is now stronger in RS parliament. I hope that Mladen will let's say that I'm wrong. I wish I was wrong, but Dodik is stronger. And Čović is the real winner of these elections. HDZ has never been stronger than today. The only person who cannot be avoided in next government is Mr. Čović and his party. And we can say that he's the one who is high representative without born powers, local one. So he's the one who can choose who he's going to play with. He can choose for state elections, state government, will he choose opposition, current opposition, Republika Srpska, or Dodik? He can choose the same thing. Will he choose SDA or Trojka? But with Trojka and SDA, we have a little problem. I just want to give some mathematic figure. Forgive me for this, just for the clearance of where we are. Right now, if things don't change dramatically, after 80+% of counted votes, the things cannot change dramatically, unfortunately. SDA has as many votes in federation as Trojka together. Trojka made a big win in Sarajevo, and Sarajevo can be run by Trojka again. There are no doubts about it. But SDA has more votes in federation than those three parties together. Having in mind that SDA has their stable partner, DF, and Mr. Komšić party, we are coming to the conclusion that SDA together with DF have 60/40 winning over Trojka and Federation, and the fact that we have some parties like Stranka FPI, who is already together with Mr. Komšić, we have NES, who you never know how they will go in what direction. We have a problem that, basically speaking, SDA together with Komšić can be another unavoidable factor in this equation if things don't politically change. Why I'm saying this? Because Schmidt, and I'm coming to the Schmidt proposal, I personally think that if Schmidt didn't make that changing the constitution, I'm talking about changing federal constitution, moving from upgrading House of People from 17 to 23 in each ethnic caucus, and if he left the same ways that you need 1/3 of the ethnic group in one caucus in order to nominate, unlock the federation government, if he did not do that change, Čović will be winner again, because Čović will have more than 2/3 of Croat seats, whatever Schmidt or no Schmidt formula you apply, it will be more than 2/3. So that's not, but we have one problem. We have one problem, Edward, with previous pre-Schmidt decision, constitution of federation and the election law, you could avoid on Bosniak side someone who is the biggest one. What I'm trying to say, that Schmidt proposal, we'll see the numbers, but Schmidt proposal may lead us to the situation in which SDA together with DF will have more than 12 out of 23 people in House of People in Bosnia caucus, which means that SDA will be an unavoidable factor the way HDZ is. So we may have, it's a little bit confusion. I don't think that Schmidt made this decision in order to support SDA to be an unavoidable factor. But this decision may, as a result, have the fact that you will not have possibility to do SDA and DF together because of Bosniak seats. And there's another problem. We don't know how the Serbs House of People club is going to look like after Schmidt decision, because there's simply no 23 Serbs elected in all 10 cantons, okay? So the question is how they will be filled up. In Schmidt decision, I read it before, because yesterday I was listening, the main key players from Bosnia-Herzegovina, from Sarajevo, leaders of the parties who were competing and tried to form the government, who, when they were asked about Schmidt, they all cautiously said, I didn't read it so precisely. The question is, how come they didn't read it? I mean, 24 hours ago. But I read it because I'm not in the game, so I think it's very interesting literature. Because the question, Edward, is, if there's no 23 Serbs in all 10 cantons elected in, then the question is how you're going to fill up to 23. And you know how Schmidt decision is saying? They will be later on decided by election commission. Oh, voila. So we have a problem that we may end in a situation which maybe even Dodik can be an unavoidable factor in federation, because the only list that is full of Serbs is list in Canton, is the Krešo 10, Canton 10, Livno, that canton over there. So we may end in a situation that Dodik becomes an unavoidable factor. I hope it will not happen. But what I'm trying to say is that, Edward, we have a problem. And I think that we will not know how the governments will look like for a reasonable amount of time. And that is a problem.
Zlatko, let me follow up, and then I'm going to come to our other guests. But you just hit on one factor that Schmidt was trying to address, or that these decisions were trying to address, and that is time. That's perfect. That's good. That's excellent part of the decision. Right.
That's perfect part. But then changing the nature of House of People in sense of numbers, that's the problematic one, and that will create a very big problem today, tomorrow, especially on a long-term speaking. It is nail in a coffin of multi-ethnic political parties, because you will always run to get one ethnic group in order to be the player in a big game. I'm not talking about that part, but I'm saying that right now it may be a problem bigger than the problem. HDZ would be unavoidable anyway. Now we may have some other players unavoidable. Even Dodik may be unavoidable, but SDA for sure may be unavoidable because of Schmidt decision. I'm not saying that was his intention, but the consequence is what I'm saying.
I understand. Very interesting. Because so the concern move from the summer was about within the Croat caucus, and you're saying actually the real concern is within the Bosniak and the Serb caucus, and not the pre-existing concern. So but with respect to within the Croat caucus, you don't see that this somehow disturbs the federation balance, or no, and that it's otherwise a balanced.
What I'm trying to say, with or without Schmidt decision, HDZ with these results and Čović would be unavoidable factor anyway.
Anyway.
So he's, as I said,
Sure.
high rep and no born power.
Sure.
She's the only one. And today Dodik was calling him and saying, can we do together?
Yes. And that, okay, so on that note, Zlatko, you just made the choice for me, so I'm going to give the floor to the one individual who is not present with us on this stage in this beautiful setting, and that is Mladen Ivanic, and then we'll come back to Krešimir, Zubak, and Ivo Komšic to talk further about elements in the federation. But Zlatko just mentioned Dodik. Mladen, are you with us there from, I believe, Herceg-Novi in Montenegro? Is Mladen with us?
I am here. I can hear you. I hope that you can see me also.
For the moment, no, but we'll leave that to our technicians to sort that element out. But Mladen, welcome. It's great to have you with us here. And you've heard, I hope you've heard what Zlatko was just saying about that interesting facet potentially within the Serb caucus, within the Federation House of Peoples. But I know, I would imagine, oh, and now we see you on the screen. Great to see you, Mladen.
Good to see you.
Great. Drago mi je da vas vidim opet. So obviously you can respond to that, but I'm sure your primary concern is this race between Milorad Dodik and Jelena Trivic for the RS presidency. But in any event, you have the floor, and please, we appreciate your perspectives on the elections.
Thank you, and it is a really pleasure to be, together on this panel with all these very well-known faces from the past, from the political past in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and all my, let's say, good friends. So my first impression about the results of elections, especially in Republika Srpska, is the fact that, speaking generally, the composition of the, let's say, Republika Srpska caucus in a state parliament, everything is more or less the same, as it is the same within the Republika Srpska National Assembly. So there is no big change. One seat more or less, but no big result, no big change. So the whole essence of the last elections was basically the race between Jelena Trivic and Milorad Dodik. And I really believe that the result of Jelena Trivic is so good that I have to say that I am really impressed, especially because if you compare the support of the parties which were behind her nominations, so these parties had around 1/3 of the votes, and she is, according to my opinion, more than a half of the whole votes in RS. So that means that it was a very strong and very good candidate. We believe that there were so many irregularities, especially after 11 o'clock in the evening, when Dodik saw that this race, that he can lose it, and then started a lot of manipulations on the polling stations. A lot of observers from the opposition parties were just removed from these places, and we have so many illogical results in some of these places where, for instance, Madam Trivic had 0 votes and Dodik 400 something, which was simply not possible. Okay, we will prepare all these things, and we'll see what will be the outcome and what will be the election commission will finally decide. We believe that there is a strong enough evidence is that maybe even the whole voting process for the president of RES can be, let's say, can be maybe completely cancelled, and that we can have a new voting in that position. But we'll see. But even without that, there is a very clear message. Mladen Ivanic won with a bigger difference, and Dodik won with a very small difference. So I think that it's a very clear sign that basically Dodik politically lost elections. So if the difference between Madam Kacjanovic and Šarović is so relatively big, and this so small, that means that it's big attack on the Dodik credibility, political credibility. That's the reason why he was not so happy, and I think that he was very disappointed. And I think that this is also a message for him that his time is over. We'll see, will he survive these games, the current situation, if the election commission will make some other decision. I'm quite convinced that he cannot survive these circumstances, but in RS, this is the main message. Generally speaking about the high rep or Mr. Schmidt decision, that will be much more expression accepted by the majority in Republika Srpska, just calling Mr. Schmidt. I am very surprised that he did it at that night, but now 2 days after that, I have to say that he made a very, very clever decision, because none of the players commented that until now. Everybody accepted, and I think that the key local players are extremely happy why he did it, because now they can say, what we could do, he did it, so it's his decision. We are not involved in that, we are not responsible, and everybody is happy that this part, at least, of the story is closed now. Is it good? I don't think that this is good. 27 years after the war, to have IRF making decisions and to changing even the constitution of federation is something which I don't see very, very, very good, but this is, let's say, a reality. So my impression generally about the elections is there will be no big change. There will be definitely not a big change. The only change which I see at this moment is basically, let's say, Bečirević instead of Izetbegović. Honestly, if Mr. Bečirević will remain on his main political messages, which he delivered in last 10, 15 years, honestly, I don't see that this will be a big change, because I really think that he is even in some positions tougher than Izetbegović in expressing his views. He didn't see until now so ready for the compromises, but we'll see. On the other hand, he will have Mladen Ivanic. She will be not a decision-making person. Decision-making person will be only Mr. Dodik. She will just execute what Mr. Dodik would like to see. And because of that, because of the composition which Zlatko mentioned, that HDZ is there, if SDA is there, if SNSD is there, we will have the same story like in the last 4 years, which means stagnation, 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 conflicts, conflicts, conflicts. And I don't see that it will be changed. The only possibility for this country not being completely, not a guarantee, is maybe opposition from both sides to create a new council of the ministers, but as Zlatko said, it doesn't look very realistic at this point. The other, if everything else is like it looks now, we will have the same next 4 years like the last 4 years.
Mladen, thank you for that. And in a moment, we're going to turn to Ivo and Krešo to see their perspectives on any possibility of change, even within HDZ, and possibly even with respect to Mr. Čović himself, and dynamics within the federation. We're going to turn to see if they perceive any chance for some change within the federation. Let me, Mladen, if I could, I want to just come back and make sure that we all understand you correctly on the race between Dodik and Trivic. Do you believe that you said obviously Dodik is politically damaged and the message is his time is gone, that no matter, even if he formally obtains, but just do you anticipate that there's anything changing in the result, the CEC or any other dynamics changing the result, or do you think in the end he's going to hold on to that position even if he is severely politically damaged?
Because I am now in Montenegro, I'm not in Banja Luka, but I have information that PDP and SDS, they are just trying to collect all the examples where we believe they were misused in the whole election process. Then we will apply to the election commission with the request that all the voting all the results for the president has to be cancelled, and we will insist to have the new voting for the president of Republika Srpska. We believe that we will have enough arguments, and we already have some very visible, very clear signs. Even the president of the local board in the polling station, one place in Gradiška, said openly, it was taped in the public, that he worked against Jelena Trivic, and at that place she had 0 votes. So we have all these examples, and we believe that we will have enough, and that Central Election Commission will have really a lot of arguments to decide that all the results will be in the president of arrest, will be cancelled, and that this voting has to be repeated again.
Understand.
And depends on that.
And Mladen, just before we turn back, I have to ask, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about whether you see that situation wholly resolved within Central Election Commission and Republika Srpska, or do you see Belgrade and President Vučić involved, or maybe not? Maybe he has what he wants, which is perhaps Dodik remaining, but in damaged form. Is Belgrade involved or not really?
The Central Election Commission will be completely independent, and it's independent and doesn't have any link, any influence of Serbia in that situation. So it's exclusively the matter of the Central Election Commission. What could be the position of Serbia? I'm not so sure that it's so simple like you said just recently, because I think for first time I have to say I saw very neutral approach from Serbia regarding our elections. It was nothing which was be seen like a support of Mr. Dodik, especially. For first time, Madam Trivic had the chance to be on the state media in a campaign, which was not the case before. So from that point of view, I think that we have quite good signs that really Belgrade in these elections was neutral, which is, I believe, very okay, because that was always my personal request, just not to interfere in elections in Republika Srpska, because this is our own matter, and that I don't see any Serb officials, to have a favorites in Republika Srpska, because if somebody from Belgrade has a favorite, that means there is a part of the population which is not good for them, which is not voting for that favorite. And I think anybody from Serbia who would like to lead a real policy responsible for the, let's say, national policy, cannot interfere in the elections. And I have to say, this time I am relatively happy with the whole approach.
Very good. Thank you, Mladen, for those very clear, insightful remarks, as we would anticipate. And now let me turn, and I'll turn, if I can, I'll turn in alphabetical order, if that's okay, to Krešo, okay, well, we'll go reverse alphabetical order. Krešo, if I could ask you first, let me just say one thing. I meant to say this at the top. Zlatko pointed it out. Our viewers at home, in fact, you're right, Zlatko, there were 3 elections on Sunday, Brazil, Bulgaria, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and we here are, at SAIS, we're focused on Bosnia-Herzegovina. We turn now from what Mladen's perspectives on dynamics within Republika Srpska back to the Federation. And Krešo, you heard what Zlatko was saying. You heard Mladen as well. Neither of them see a great opportunity for change. But is that true? Because if we look within, and obviously cover the whole gamut, but if we look within the Croat polity, you know, Dragan Čović, and we have the Schmidt decisions. We have Zagreb having signified it wanted these decisions, and Plenković, Prime Minister Plenković, signifying satisfaction. So in that context, can we expect some change, even though HDZ, as all the Zlatko and Mladen have indicated, is still in controlling position? Could we still perhaps expect some change within what we might see from HDZ, who it might choose as a partner in government and within federation at the state level as well? And I remind you of the US sanctions. Let me just call those out, where there was a, let's point it out, a Bosniak and a Serb, but not a Croat. And maybe that was deliberately, possibly a signal, you know, coming right after the election. So I'll leave all that to you, Krešo. You have the floor.
Da, čuo sam i neke tvrdnje da je ova odluka visokog predstavnika ishođena od strane političara iz Republike Hrvatske, konkretno gospodina Plenkovića. Ja ne mislim tako, da je niti Schmidt, niti bilo ko u Sjedinjenim Američkih Državama stoji sada iza HDZ-a ili Čovića ili njihovih prijedloga vezano za promjenu izbornog zakona, u smislu da je to što je uradio Schmidt, da je to rezultat nekakvog pritiska i tako. Međutim, prije nego što konkretno odgovorim na ovo što ste vi, Edvard, postavili pitanje, htio bih samo reći nekoliko riječi uvodnih, budući to prate i gledatelji u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama. Dakle, Zlatko je u uvodnom svom govoru rekao da se mi nalazimo u dubokoj socioekonomskoj krizi, što je točno. Međutim, prije svega mi se nalazimo u dubokoj političkoj krizi. Ako izuzmemo prvih 5 godina nakon potpisivanja mirovnog sporazuma, koje su bile relativno uspješne i pozitivne, smo imali promjene. Posljednjih 20, odnosno mnogi koji se bavi profesionalno analiziranjem stanja odnosa u Bosni i Hercegovini, izričito tvrde da je posljednjih 15 godina, zapravo 15 godina konstantne političke krize u kojoj se mi nalazimo, s čim se ja inače slažem. Ja nisam taj koji se bavim tim profesionalnom analizom političkih odnosa ili same političkih odnosa u Bosni i Hercegovini, ali pratim to, registriram i naravno imam o tome svoje mišljenje i slažem se s onim koji to kažu da smo mi već 15 godina u konstantnoj političkoj krizi i upravo ta politička kriza je determinirala rezultate ovih izbora. Determinirala. Nije socijalno-ekonomsko stanje. Niko. Niti jedan od ovih ljudi koji su izlazili u političkom životu nisu puno govorili o svojim programima i tako dalje, izlaženja iz ekonomske i socijalne stanja ili situacije u kojoj se nalazi. Uglavnom su govorili o ekskluzivno političkim pitanjima. I kada je riječ o tome, na državnoj i na entitetskim razinama nije došlo do nekih, pa skoro nikakvih promjena u stanju odnosa. Nešto je, kada je riječ o kantonalnoj razini, došlo do nekih promjena u odnosu na stanje koje smo do sada imali. Budući da nije došlo do promjena kada je riječ o državnoj razini, kada je riječ o stanju odnosa na entitetskoj, ja ne očekujem bitne pozitivne promjene. Zvuči malo pesimistično, ali mislim da je to tako. Kada je riječ o HDZ-u, ne mislim ja da ova odluka visokog predstavnika bitno utječe na poziciju HDZ-a ili stranaka koje su oko toga okupljene. Ali je bitno sljedeće, na rezultat HDZ-a i stranaka koje se oko njega okuple je utjecalo stanje odnosa, a posebno vezano za izborni zakon i tako dalje. Posebno je to utjecalo. I kontraefekt u smislu očekivanja ovdje u Sarajevu je postignut time što se bojkotirali razgovori, što se tamo išlo čisto formalno da se sudjeluje u svemu tome, jer je to zapravo dalo podršku i vjetar u leđa HDZ-u strankama koje se nalaze, koje su bile okupljene oko HDZ-a. Ja to govorim ne samo zato što znam da su mnogi ljudi koji uopće nisu ranije iskazivali podršku HDZ-u iz intelektualnih krugova, ovaj puta okrenuli ploču i davali podršku HDZ-u upravo nezadovoljni tojme što ovdje se nije naišlo na razumijevanje u vezi prijedloga koji su prijedlogi iz međunarodne zajednice. Prijedlozi da se pristupi promjeni izbornog zakona. To je na neki način ovdje u Sarajevu bojkotirano i to je po meni utjecalo u glavnoj najvećoj mjeri na rezultate kada je riječ o HDZ-u, rezultate izbora kada je riječ o HDZ-u i strankama koje se okupile oko njega. Osobno, ako se pratili ove izbore, sam primijetio jednu pozitivnu promjenu kada je riječ o HDZ-u. Pozitivnu u smislu retorike, koja je za razliku od drugih bila dosta umjerena, s jedne strane, i što je ključna poruka bila javnosti upućena, Bosna i Hercegovina naša domovina. Ja se nadam da je to iskreno opredjeljenje. A mislim da jeste zbog toga što iz Hrvatske izlaze pritisci prema HDZ-u da mora prihvatiti Bosnu i Hercegovinu kao svoju domovinu i da je Hrvatskoj interes da Bosna i Hercegovina ostane cjelovita i da kao takva uđe u Europsku uniju. Dakle, što se tiče HDZ-a, stranaka oko koje se ja mislim da će oni ovaj puta igrati kooperativnu ulogu u smislu da se stanje u Bosni i Hercegovini normalizira, popravi odnose i tako dalje. Da li će to naići na podršku kod drugih stranaka, teško mi je komentirati, dati konačne odluke, odnosno konačne ocjene. Jer vidite već, kada je riječ o državnoj razini, Milorad Dodik je već istupio sa jednim ultimativnim zahtjevom. Tražit će mjesto ministra vanjskih poslova. Kad vi uđete u razgovore i pregovore oko konstituiranja vlasti sa tako nekim ultimativnim zahtjevima, onda to već samo po sebi utječe na zategnutost, teškoću dogovora i tako dalje. Za očekivati je više razuma i kod svih drugih, koji su u situaciji da sudjeluju u sastavljanju vlasti na državnoj i na entitetskim razinama. Eto, za očekivati, a da li će to tako biti, ja pravo da vam kažem, nisam siguran. Ja.
Hvala. Ivo, čuli ste što govori o Krešov. Šta vi mislite? What is your perspective? Do you agree with Kreshov's perspective? Please.
Evo, pozdravljam vas prije svega i sve vas koji nas gledate i slušate. Pa, mi smo ovdje zapravo, svi vi koji ste već govorili, napravili veoma dobre analize i našeg stanja i iznijeli neka predviđanja koja su vezana za rezultate ovih izbora. Naša očekivanja mogu biti, inače mogu biti, dakle, imamo 3 modaliteta, mogu biti pozitivna, mogu biti negativna, dakle, da mislimo da će biti gore nego što je bilo, I naše očekivanje može biti i to da će stanje ostati isto. Dakle, nemamo četvrtu varijantu. Ova očekivanja proizilaze iz onog stanja u kome se naše društvo i država nalaze ovih zadnjih, 27 godina, da tako kažemo, ili 15 godina, kao što je govorio Krešo Zubak, gdje se stanje pogoršalo. Šta imamo? Imamo sa strane SNSD-a Milorada Dodika, koji je dominantna figura svih ovih godina u Republici Srpskom i u srpskom narodu u Bosni i Hercegovini, koji blokira državu, negira državu, opstruira državu i to na svim nivoima vlasti gdje se njegovi ljudi nalaze i gdje se on nalazi. Dakle, u predsjedništvu države opstrukcija, opstrukcija u državnom parlamentu, opstrukcija u državnoj vladi. To je stanje u državi. Stanje u federaciji je slično, samo što su subjekti drugačiji. Imamo totalnu opstrukciju federacije i rada federalne vlade zadnje 4 godine i to je vrlo jasno ko je subjekt toga, ko je kreator toga. To je HDZ sa svojim kadrovima u predsjednikom federacije i sa ostalima koji sjede u federalnoj vladi. Imamo opstrukciju imenovanja Ustavnog suda, koji nam je jako važan, jer pogotovo sad poslije ovih izbora može se desiti da imamo veoma mnogo aplikacija ka Ustavnom sudu, a mi Ustavni sud nemamo. I sve se to zna ko stoji iza toga. Dakle, šta možemo očekivati od ovih izbora? Možemo očekivati da se to stanje promijeni. Evo, Mladen Ivanic je rekao, mislim da je u pravu, a i mi to znamo, gospođa Cvijanović će nastaviti Dodikovu politiku predsjedništva. Dakle, mi ćemo i dalje imati blokirano predsjedništvo s te strane. Što se tiče federacije, da li će sada HDZ uraditi isto s obzirom na izborni rezultat koji su postigli, bit će nezaobilazan faktor u formiranju vlasti u federaciji, da li će se ponašati kao u zadnje 4 godine. Evo, Krešo je iznio jednu svoju viziju svega toga, dosta onako optimistično. Ja mislim da će biti ključna ovdje uloga Europske unije i njenih institucija i njihovog uticaja na hrvatsku zvaničnu vlast, koji mogu ovdje napraviti ovo što možemo očekivati kao jedan pozitivan pomak. Jer pogledajmo to, slažem se s tim da je u izbornoj kampanji su se pojavili neki novi slogani koji se odnose na državu Bosnu i Hercegovinu. To je uticaj iz Zagreba, odnosno to je uticaj iz Europske unije preko Zagreba. Mi znamo svi šta HDZ misli ovdje u Bosni i Hercegovini i šta je mislio sve ove godine. Jedino u što se sad, ono što je evidentno, jer govorili smo ovdje o odluci visokog predstavnika, on je donio odluku kojom se sprečava blokada federacije kao što je bilo moguće ove zadnje 4 godine. I on je tu vrlo jasan i nedvosmislen. On je donio mjere koje potpuno onemogućavaju, dakle, blokadu federacije. Od tajminga za izbor predsjednika federacije i svih drugih i tako dalje, od promjene kvoruma onih koji biraju funkcionere. Dakle, on je veoma dobro ušao u taj problem blokade federacije i rada njenih institucija i on je sada donio mjere koje će to spriječiti. Ja ne znam šta su ljudi očekivali od visokog predstavnika, kakvu su mjeru očekivali. Ja vidim sada po izjavama nekim da su ljudi očekivali da će on ukinuti ove stranke koje su sad osvojile opet najviše glasova, da će on anulirati rezultate izbora, da pa kao On je sada donio mjere koje idu na ruku ovima koji su ponovo dobili najviše u građanskim izborima. Pazite, svi izabrani imaju građanski legitimitet. To su građanski izbori, jedan građan, jedan glas. Dakle, ako je neko očekivao da će on promijeniti izborne rezultate, onda su to potpuno nerealna očekivanja. Ima još jedna stvar koju treba napomenuti, koju treba imati u vidu. On nije mogao sa svojom odlukom ići u susret ni jednoj stranci, jer on nije znao rezultate izbora u ponoć, u nedjelju navečer. On je tu odluku donio kad nismo uopće znali kakav će biti izborni rezultat. Pa nije visoki predstavnik znao kako će proći HDZ, SDA, Dodik, ko će pobijediti u predsjedništvu. On to ništa nije znao. Dakle, on je svoju odluku donio sa najboljom namjerom da spriječi blokadu federacije i to je bio njegov cilj. I druga stvar koja je jako važna u njegovoj odluci. Iz njegove odluke ne proizilazi nikakva etnička izborna jedinica i on je faktički likvidirao ideju o stvaranju trećeg entiteta sa svojom odlukom. Da smo mi naše građane prije 10 dana ili 7 dana pitali šta je najvažnije u politici ove zemlje, tvrdim vam da bi većina rekla, barem oni koji vole ovu zemlju, koji rade za nju, koji žele ovdje da žive, oni bi rekli treba spriječiti etničke izborne jedinice i treba deblokirati federaciju. To bi 90% građana ove zemlje reklo, odnosno u federaciji reklo da smo ih pitali prije ovih izbora. Evo, visoki predstavnik je to uradio svojom odlukom. Koje će sad implikacije biti ovo računice, jel? Da li će sada ta njegova odluka ići u susret i to naknadno HDZ-u, SDA-u, Dodiku u formiranju kluba Srba u Domu naroda federacije, on to nije mogao znati i mi ne znamo tačno kako će se to završiti, ali ove računice, mislim, možda Zlatko uvijek ima uvijek dobar program u koji on ove cifre ubaci. Ja vjerujem da je ovo tačne ove njegove analize, ali to Schmidt nije mogao znati da će tako biti i ne možemo ga, njegovu odluku ne možemo kroz to gledati. Trebamo je gledati i ja je gledam kroz ovo. Deblokirao je federaciju, zapravo spriječit će njegova odluka blokadu federacije i nema izbornih jedinica. On je riješio još jedan važan problem svojom odlukom, nije baš direktno, ali je na indirektan način. On je stavio u zagradu glavnu političku ideju ovdje koja nam je nosila jako mnogo smutnje, a to je legitimno predstavljanje. On ovom odlukom zapravo tu političku ideju sklanja potpuno u stranu. S njom se više ne može mahati kao nekom političkom idejom, političkom parolom. On je ovim proširenjem klubova u Domu naroda federacije na indirektan način riješio taj problem. I on je zapravo uvažio izborne rezultate i građanski legitimitet onih koji su dobili ove izbore. Pa HDZ, evo čuli smo ovdje, najviše dobio njegovom odlukom, vidim sad to svi govore u javnosti. Pa HDZ je imao vlast svih 25 godina ovdje. I bio je glavni subjekt i u državi i u federaciji. I SDA je isto to imala. Ne možemo sada kazati Schmidtova odluka favorizira SDA, Dom naroda, odnosno klub Bošnjaka i tako dalje. Pa SDA je to imala i do sada. Dakle, nemojmo očekivati da će bilo ko izvana iz Evropske unije, da će visoki predstavnik kreirati naše izbore i da će on anulirati izborne rezultate i izbornu volju građana naše zemlje. Ovo su građani glasali. I mi kao demokrati, ako se držimo demokratskih principa, mi moramo poštivati to. E sad moramo unutar sebe ovdje malo aktivnije raditi. Ovdje niko ne govori da su građanske stranke, ja pod navodnike to stavljam, uvijek kažem takozvane, građanske stranke podbacile. Zašto je HDZ ostvario ovako veliki rezultat? Pa recite mi koja građanska stranka ima organizaciju u Širokom Brijegu u Grudama, u Tomislavgradu i tako dalje. I pogledajte njihove liste. Pogledajte izborne liste. Ja sam sad kad sam išao na izbore, tražio sam da vidim da li na listama kantonalnim ima Hrvata, jer je važno da dobijemo građanske, da tako sad kažem, Hrvate u Domu naroda, odnosno u klubu, u ovome hrvatskom klubu u Domu naroda. Nisam mogao naći. U Sarajevu, pa i na drugim mjestima, pogotovo. I gledajte, moja supruga koja je glasala sa mnom, ja je poslije pitam, za koga si glasala? Kaže, vjeruj, ja sam pregledala sve liste, našla sam jednu Hrvaticu na listi za kanton Sarajeva, za nju sam glasala, ne znam uopće koja je stranka i nije me briga. Želim da u kantonalnoj skupštini sjedi neko od Hrvata u Sarajevu. Pazite, to je stanje stvari. A to, zato nije odgovoran ni SDA, ni SNSD koji ima svoje organizacije po Bosni i Hercegovini, po federaciji, ni HDZ. To su odgovorne građansko-liberalne stranke koje se ne razvijaju na cijelom prostoru federacije i oni su svoju kampanju ograničili samo na jedan dio federacije, kao što je HDZ ograničio na samo onaj dio gdje živi većina Hrvata. To su, dakle, politički problemi i slažem se potpuno s ovim što je rekao Krešo Zubak. Političke ideje su ovdje odlučile izbore. Pogledajte parole. Jedinstvo kod Hrvata, glavni slogan, jedinstvo. Jel? Najmalobrojniji narod, najlakše se organizira oko jedinstva. Imate s druge strane sigurnost u postojećoj geopolitičkoj situaciji, uz ove pritiske iz Srbije i iz Hrvatske. SDA ide sa parolom sigurnost, politička ideja oko koje će se Bošnjaci najlakše okupiti, oni nemaju izlaza, moraju se držati toga. I imate s druge strane ovu građansku državu. Jel, građanska država, zašto građanska država? Da bi se izbjegla njena etnička podjela, opet homogenizacija oko jedne političke ideje. 3 političke ideje su izvršile homogenizaciju i sve 3 te stranke su čak dobro prošle na ovim izborima radi tih, odnosno zbog tih ideja.
Ivo, thank you. Let me, Kresha, just come back to you. So you've heard this, and you mentioned when you were speaking that you hoped the phrase that Beha is our homeland was sincere. And I can remember when you formed Nova Hrvatska Inicijativa that was your statement. Bosnia-Herzegovina is our homeland. Do you think, this is my question, I want to come back to you. Do you think these changes that Ivo, and not just Ivo, but I think Zlatko has said, you know, that have been some form of a balance, do you think it fundamentally addresses Croat concerns to have the opening that you tried for pluralism within the Croat community in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Da, čak smo imali, ajde tako kaže, nekog i političkog uspjeha u tom smislu. Nekog, ne nekog značajnog, ali imali smo nekog uspjeha. Ali ja mislim da je problem nije toliko bio u samom HDZ-u i policiji HDZ-a, koliko je odgovor na politiku za koju je tada vodio HDZ, odgovor iz Sarajeva bio po mom mišljenju, ti odgovori su imali kontraefekt. One su zapravo išli u pravcu homogenizacije oko HDZ-a, a ne nisu išli u pravcu disperzije hrvatskog glasačkog tijela u smislu političke pluralizacije, lijeve orijentacije, liberalne orijentacije i tako dalje. Dakle, kao što je ovo sada, sva ova događanja vezana za izborni zakon i to odsustvo ili pasivno ponašanje stranaka koje imaju sjedište u Sarajevu prema tom problemu, prema tom pitanju, imalo je, kao što sam rekao, kontraefekt. Imalo je efekt u tom smislu da je samo dalo dodatni vjetar u leđa, u jedra Hrvatskoj demokratskoj zajednici i strankama koje je on upravo na tom problemu uspio oko sebe okupiti. Kao što sam rekao, Ne samo oni koji su politički aktivni u smislu članstva u nekim strankama, nego znam sasvim pouzdano, imam kontakte sa ljudima koji nisu bili politički aktivni, ali koji su imali jedan otklon ili kritički odnos prema policiji HDZ-a, koji su ovaj puta se priklonili toj opciji kada su vidjeli kakav je stav i ponašanje, da najjednostavnije bih kazao nekakav ignorantski odnos prema tom problemu i pitanju koje je bilo otvoreno i koje je na agendi Evropske unije. To je pitanje izbornog zakona. Dakle, to je homogenizirao HDZ. Drugo, ovo što sam i kazao, osobno mislim da je došlo do izvjesnih promjena, bez obzira što je čelništvo HDZ-a ostalo isto. Ja mislim da je pod utjecajem iz Hrvatske, za razliku mišljenja koje ovdje prevladava u Sarajevu, u političkom životu, ja mislim da je upravo djelovanje iz Zagreba prema HDZ-u Bosne i Hercegovine išlo u tome smislu da im se kaže Bosna i Hercegovina je naš interes. Očuvanje integriteta Bosne i Hercegovine, opći hrvatski interes. Bosna i Hercegovina Evropskoj uniji je naš interes, nacionalni interes, hrvatski u cjelini. Dakle, da je to prihvaćeno i da se prešla i prihvatila parola Bosna i Hercegovina je naša domovina, što jeste. Ja mislim.
That's right. Krešimir, thank you for that. But I just want to again remind that it's very interesting what you and Ivo are saying is that the homogenization within the Croat community is a shared problem. It's a shared problem. It's that of parties here in Sarajevo and also even including civic parties that as you said, Ivo, do not go to Široki Brijeg and campaign. And again, my question, which is really a hope, is that the Schmidt changes introduce some kind of relaxation, which create the opportunities for some connections that parties here in Sarajevo can take advantage of. So I think we discussed about government formation as best we can, and again, that would be the ideal. Would be a government that is, in all senses, believes Bosnia-Herzegovina is its homeland and works to that objective and European Union membership, but that may not be the reality. And I've heard skepticism we've had from Mladen and Zlatko as well. So let's leave that for a second, that element of the combinations that actually could be, and let's accept perhaps that we may be stuck, as Zlatko and Mladen have said in this. Though, I point out, I still believe that it's a wild card with Zagreb and relationship with Čović, and we have to see what that entails. But let's leave those combinations and speculation to the side. And let's imagine that it is as perhaps the same like Mladen and Zlatko were saying, in some kind of difficult way. What still could be done? What still could be done to move this country forward? And again, what's unique here, you have this presence of the international community. This is unique. And Mladen was right. He said, yeah, it's a sad indicator that, after so many years, the High Representative has to use his bond powers, but he did use his bond powers and he could use them again. And we see, I think, signs of clear involvement and engagement of the United States. You mentioned European Union, but I see the US. This was a sign yesterday that the US did this, and those are approved at very high levels, those decisions about sanctions. And so I turn to you, all of you, and Jakob as well, to what could be the focus? And I'll give a suggestion of one that I think brings citizens and across the country, no matter their orientation and who they voted for together. And that is the fight against corruption and criminality and fair taxation and issues like that. And I know, for example, one clear example of this one about these gambling halls and the taxation that they go. So why not? How about focusing on issues like that that should be completely shared across this country, across all, both entities everywhere. There should be no resistance whatsoever to movement in that regard. And you have whatever the political combinations are and whatever the political interest to resist that. Let's remember that Schmidt has shown a willingness to act, and the US, we know, is very concerned and active on this issue. Does that represent a focal point, a priority, obviously, as we get through government formation and those political issues, or is there something else, perhaps, that could be a focal point to move the country forward? Please, Zlatko.
For our foreign dignity, let's say participants, I will stick on English for clarification, because it looks like we in here have significant level of understanding. I would sign everything that Krešo and Ivo said, and it's very interesting. I mean, it's not big wonder that I share opinion with Jakob, but I mean that I see an Ivo and Krešo here being together in very substantial strategic position, which I do share completely, is I think encouraging. I think that now European Union can walk into the picture strongly and have to be walking into the picture. What I'm saying by that, experience shows that the local actors in Bosnia-Herzegovina lose interest for serious reforms once their government is formed following elections. So I think that we had in 2014 after elections and 2018 after elections, the governments were formed after long discussions, and they got blessing of the European Union. And then after they formed governments, then they got support of European Union to go with reforms. As a result was the process of actually, I mean, what was happening before, they were consciously creating political crisis as the easiest way to remain in power. And they were for 3 years discussing about election reforms, because that was the best way to keep moving without being asked why you are not delivering on the issues that I was mentioning. I completely agree with Krešo that political crisis is the biggest problem in this country. And social crisis and economic crisis is just following, and these things cannot be sorted out without each other. But I mean, I was mentioning social crisis in the sense that people even didn't look so much about social issues because of political crisis. And result of elections were defined by the political crisis that my predecessors were mentioning. Having said so, I think that the process of forming the government on levels of Bosnia-Herzegovina following these elections with support of European Union would not to be giving candidacy status, but giving candidacy status together with a set of reforms that would be agreed before the formation of the government, to see who would form the government around a certain package. What I'm saying, I mean, I'm just giving you few elements of that package. I'm not talking about economic, energy, social issues. They will go for it. But the first one is how we have to see what are the mechanisms of this institutions of this state and different layers. They would be ready to be able to do homework along the candidacy status. Otherwise, we will get candidacy status in like Turkey 25 years ago. So there's no need for candidacy. There's a need for constitutional and legal rules as well as administrative practices for the functioning and government institutions that are capable of filling the candidacy status. That's first thing. Second thing is to see what a distribution of the competencies, if there any misunderstanding, to do what can be done in order to do it faster. And the third most important thing is, I think, electoral reform. the package of what are the election reforms that should be done, including all judgments that were from Sejdić Finci to all others that Schmidt was trying to tackle. So having that in mind, when we put the package, reform package, that includes those things, so the next 3-4 years, there is no political debates about the issues that will be in function of homogenizing Bosniaks, Serbs, and Croats around certain issues. I think that's the point number one. The second point is I want to be very clear. There's an option which is realistic. If Krešo said that HDZ and Čović will be friendly to European path and will be more moderate and ready to, with support of Zagreb, to do the things along European path, well, but then we will have that test. It's very simple. It will be possible if Čović decides to have Dodik information in the Council of Ministers, and especially Krešo said a good example. If he wants to have a Dodik Minister of Foreign Affairs, it means that Putin will have Lavrov and another Minister of Foreign Affairs. And Lavrov will be probably moderate person as a Minister of Foreign Affairs to what would be Dodik, because we all know that Dodik is a bigger Putin than Putin in every aspect of meaning, from physically to politically. So, and he's trying to do so. So it is very important to see what is going to happen with that. So its key is in Čović's hands. So Čović has to know that he's actually deciding about, will we have a government that is Putin government? Let's be very clear. And Zagreb has to understand, do we want to have Putin government in here through Dodik and people around him? Of course, if election results allow the option to have a government without Dodik. I think election results are giving that opportunity. Now we'll see. And of course, there is Edward, there's a possibility that Čović also looks in direction of having a government with, let's say, moderate parties from Federation, because he will be able to choose SDA or Troika. Let's see. I mean, so it's I'm only afraid, Ivo, and I completely agree with you, that Schmidt did very good thing in deblocking the process of implementation. The government, he did excellent job in deblocking functioning Federation Constitutional Court. I'm only saying that I'm not saying, of course, I have no any idea that Schmidt would like to support SDA. But basically speaking, his numbers from 7, 6, and 17, and also people moving to 11 out of 33, at the end result may be that SDA may be an unavoidable factor the way Čović is. And then we have a problem. Then we really do have a problem. Then we have to see how we can, and if they think that they can form a government which will say, okay, inshallah, we will do election reforms after we form the government, that inshallah is not going to result in anything positive, because we'll talk about election reform for the next 3-4 years. So that's my very, very clear point, and I'll stop in here.
Zlatko, thank you for that. Let me, Koša, hoćete vi? Molim?
Je li ovo bilo pitanje za sve?
Da.
Je li trebao prije, ispričavam se.
Ne, možete. Izvolite.
Vidite o čemu se radi. Faktori su stranke u Bosni i Hercegovini, ali i kroz raniju analizu smatram da je u svemu ovo nezaobilazan faktor međunarodne zajednice. I da međunarodna, ono što danas podrazumijeva, ne može skinuti odgovornost za stanje kojim se sada mi nalazi sa sebe. Bilo je nekoliko kardinalno loših postupaka međunarodne zajednice. Kad kaže međunarodna zajednica, onda podrazumijevam i visokog predstavnika i politike i tako dalje. Vidite, dva ću vam primjer. Pokojni Pedi Ešdaun je provodio radikalne promjene ovdje koristeći svoj institut, svoje ovlasti visokog predstavnika. Brojne zakone je donio, brojne ljude je promijenio, tako dalje i tako dalje. Odmah iza njega dolazi Schwarzschilling, a kasnije Incko, koji za 180 stupnja mijenjaju pristup rješavanju problema u Bosni i Hercegovini. To samo je pokazalo kod ovdje bitnih političkih faktora da i međunarodna zajednica tu luta, da nema jasnu strategiju, jasnu taktiku kako uvući Bosnu i Hercegovinu u ove euroatlantske asocijacije. Može se to ostvariti samo ako, prvo, oni koji u ime međunarodne zajednice ovdje dolaze, moraju dobro poznavati naše prilike, našu povijest i naš mentalitet. Ako to ne zna, a uočio sam da mnogi to ne znaju, koji ovdje dolaze u međunarodne zajednice, mi možemo samo očekivati ovakve probleme ili incidente koji idu samo na ruku ovim koji opstruiraju proces reintegracije Bosne i Hercegovine i tako dalje. Dakle, ili drugi primjer, to je aktualno sada. Ne može snijeti međunarodna zajednica sa sebe odgovornost za stanje u pravosuđu. Jer ona je insistirala na ovom konceptu bez prethodne pripreme, kadrovske, materijalne, organizacije i tako dalje. Mi smo na odgovorne dužnosti tužitelja koji su dobili široke ovlasti, dobili ljude bez ikakvih prethodnih znanja i iskustava na toj vrsti poslova. Dakle, prvo međunarodna zajednica mora jasno odrediti strategiju i taktiku kako taj proces povući u pozitivnom smjeru. Po mom mišljenju, to se ne može naglim promjenama, jer neki koji su dolazili ovdje od međunarodne zajednice, moje to mišljenje ne znači da sam u pravu. Da su prvo sebe gledali kako oni da iz toga izvuču nekakvu svoj politički profit i tako dalje. Dakle, može se ići samo korak po korak. Odmjereno, promišljeno i tako dalje. Ja se nadam da je ova odluka gospodina Schmidt promišljena i kako je tumačio Ivo, i ja mislim da ide u tom pravcu. Prema tome, za ukupan razvoj odnosa i pravac u kojem ćemo mi, da, važni su i Dodik i Čović i tako dalje, ali je važna i međunarodna zajednica. Hvala.
Well said, Kresha. And let me say, as an American, the one foreigner here on the panel, let me just say, you're absolutely right about that tragic change from Ashdown to Schwarzschilling. This was a disaster for the country. And in fact, that's when the whole unraveling by Milorad Dodik began. So we've been, this is basically 15, 16 years. So let me say that, number one. And number two is, let me say something again here, speaking to also an American and international audience, that you're hearing from these highly esteemed, capable former officials, and I would say true patriots of their country, that they are fine with this Schmidt package, although obviously Zlatko identified some potential pitfalls there. And I would say to those in the international community who care about Bosnia-Herzegovina and are friends of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and I consider myself one, to move on and move past this and get past this anger about Schmidt and focus on what can be done now, urgently, such as the issue that I raised, which is corruption, criminality. And I think Zlatko here has given a very interesting suggestion of linking candidacy, not giving it to free and making it a Turkey-like meaningless thing where you just say, oh yeah, you're a candidate, and then nothing happens, but having some plausible links, not these list of 14 conditions, but zeroing in on some key ones. And now I would really like to bring back Mladen Ivanic into this. And Mladen, I do so, I'm pleased to do so, because PDP, as I understand it, was quite active within the state parliament, working across the entity lines there with Naša Stranka and others on this report, a 100-page report about corruption in the judiciary. And I ask your viewpoint as to, again, let's leave to the side all of these combinations with Dodik and so forth. But from the perspective of Republika Srpska, obviously this was important to your party to participate in all of those hearings and that report that absolutely exposed this corruption in the judiciary and gave remedies. Do you believe that this could be a plausible focal point of in the parliament, in the state level parliament, and for folks in Republika Srpska to get behind? Please.
When you said what is a possibility, what can be done? There are two possibilities what can be done in Bosnia. One, something done by the local players. Is that realistical? At this point, I'm not so sure. Why? Because in Bosnia, still personalities are more important than institutions. For the public, for the real political life, is more important what would say Dodik, Izetbegovic until now, and Čović, much more than governments, different level of the governments, ministries. It was basically, we are now a society where the personalities are more important than institutions. So that is a big disadvantage for this country. So in order to change something, we have to have personalities who would like to have some sort of the normal, relaxed political situation and not the conflicts. All the players which I mentioned before, they were interested only in conflicts because of a lot of reasons. Do we have on a horizon somebody who looks ready to be from the local players for the compromises? Unfortunately not. The only sign which I really saw was a statement of Madam Jelena Trivić when she said, I am a Serb, but I will be the president of all citizens in Republika Srpska. I am ready to create compromises, but I also expect the other leaders to be ready for the compromises, not only me. I have to say that the big responsibility is now on Mr. Bećirović, because if we want something positive to be seen in Bosnia, the first who has to make step in that direction is that politician who represents the biggest portion of the population. That means the Bosniak member of the presidency. Without that, it's not realistic to expect that the other leaders will be ready for the compromises. Do we have it, all this situation now? Unfortunately, I'm very pessimistic about the readiness of the key players to show readiness for the compromises. So I'm not so optimistic about the positive development in Bosnia because of the local players. There is another part which is international community. Honestly, there are a few disadvantages. Bosnia is not on the top of the interest, so of the capitals, so we have responsibility of the mainly bureaucrats, and bureaucrats don't want to have to make their life difficult. So they don't want challenges. They don't want to have too many, innovative approach to the country. So they will rather be interested to policy of, let's say, let's execute something which was decided above. And there is no real policy now in the capitals about for Bosnia in that level. So I think that the key question is, who is a really international community in Bosnia and Herzegovina? It looks for me that United States are interested just in two main issues, and I would like to encourage them to continue with that. This is one, security, and second one is corruption, fight against the corruption. It looks for me that this is the two main focus of the states. The other elements, not so much, and I think that this is left to the European Union. But European Union never had a very clear policy. I remember the time when I was a Minister of Foreign Affairs, when the message was, the doors are open for Bosnia, and then behind the closed doors with the key political leaders, believe me, the key, I had a meeting with them, informal lunch, and it was a very clear message. After Croatia, there will be no enlargement for the decades, not the years, decades. So one formal message, another reality on the ground. And without that, it's not possible to expect a logical policy and something which will come positive from that side. That's the reason why we have relatively significant decline of the support of the citizens, especially in RS, but also in Bosnia as a whole for the European Union perspective, because the lack of the consistent policy. But there is one message from my side, which I really believe has to be applied, and I believe that it was not the case in the past. International community has to apply the same rules for all players in Bosnia. Not to have a players with which you can be a little bit more tolerant and the others with whom you cannot be so tolerant. My feeling was that there was too much open space, especially for the key Bosniak leaders in the last 5-6 years. There were, I understand, a very tough statement against Mr. Dodik, because Mr. Dodik's these statements are so often so stupid and counterproductive that I understand. I understand also pressure on Mr. Čović, because he made also some of these things. But it was never seen same approach, for instance, for Mr. Izetbegović. And I remember his statement, he said, I am sure that Bosnia will exist as long as the mosques are full of believers, which means that all these Bosniaks who are not the believers, or all the others who are not in the mosques, are not for Bosnia and Herzegovina. This statement deserves also very strong comment from the international. After few of us said that, 5 days after that statement, there was only comment from the US embassy. The others, they even didn't comment that, even without mentioning the name. I think that if the rules are not applied in the same way for all players in Bosnia, that we cannot expect anything special. The favorites would always say, I have my back is secure, so I can continue with my policy. There is no pressure on the locals to agree, to understand that they will have the same consequences. So I really believe that, I hope that finally at some point, especially you will have a very clear strategy regarding first of all of the Western Balkan, then within that of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we'll try to apply these rules on all players here. And for me, this is the only chance, in spite of all these outcomes of the current elections, that we can be a little bit positive if that happens. If that is not going to happen, then I have to say I'm quite pessimistic, and I don't see how we can expect next 4 years and to expect something so positive. I think we will, in that case, we will have stagnation like a best case scenario.
Thank you for that, those remarks. And before I want to come back and give the floor to Jakob for any his reaction maybe to the things he's heard, and then let Zlatko say some closing remarks here as we leave you from here in Sarajevo at the Adil Zulfkarpasic Center. But as you pointed to the international community, then, not that I'm a representative, but I'm the one American here. Mladen, let me just a couple quick observations, because there's one element that that people have alluded to that is new, and that's important, and that affects this country internationally. I'll come to that in a second. But just quickly, number one, about the stance of being the international community having equal standards. I couldn't agree more. And that should be applied in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And I would say, most of all, it should be applied to Serbia. So it's Serbia that is the country in the region that gets the most favored treatment, where you rarely even hear the word corruption mentioned, and where the president of that country, Alexander Vučić, gets away with open support for the criminal Russian regime. that has declared the West an enemy, and that the United States and European Union and NATO are backing the heroic effort of Ukraine to resist that. So we have a president in Serbia who gets the most unbalanced and favored treatment when we see sanctioned, official US sanctions elsewhere in the region, including here just yesterday. And we don't see anything of the sort in Belgrade, and that's a real problem. And that brings me to the point here where it's not so easy for the international community to just walk away from Bosnia-Herzegovina in this context. Russia is involved. We saw Dodik rushing to have the meeting with Putin. Obviously, he believes that this was a big political boost for him, or he wouldn't have done it. That's a real problem. It's something I can't understand why any citizen in this country or the region, I don't care, Serb or Croat, Bosniak, anything but Albanian, Macedonian, whatever, would have any time of day for a complete incompetent like Vladimir Putin. No matter what you think otherwise, completely incompetently managed Russian strategic interests, and that's simply inarguable. So that's an interest of the international community here. We cannot, Zlatko said, having Dodik in the government, unimaginably as foreign minister or something like that, is like having Putin, and that's a concern for us, and that's a reason we're not in a luxury of just walking away or lip service. And I can tell you personally, my own appreciation, I've known the US Ambassador Michael Murphy for many years, and I think he is completely dedicated to advancing progress in this country. And I think we've seen Christian Schmidt being willing to take steps and even willing to take political heat for steps that he believes deblock the country in a necessary way, and hopefully people agree in a balanced and fair way. So that's my perspective here as an American, and as I said, as someone who's spent a lot of time here and believe I'm a friend of this country. And I turn the floor here to, and again, I'm here looking for ways to move it forward. And I will say again, I believe the corruption and criminality issue, in my view, along with this is part of the package that Zlatko was mentioning, could be a unifying focal point of action that would bring this all parts of this country together and give citizens a reason to not be cynical and disenchanted. And another reason would be to finally get the Sejdić-Finci decision implemented. And Jakob, just any reaction from things that you've heard from Mladen, from Krešo, Ivo, or Zlatko, please just give us your perspectives, please.
Mislim da sve ovo što smo do sada čuli apsolutno stoji i vrlo rado i vrlo lako bi mogao sve to da potpišem. Međutim, ono što mene brine, a to je šta nam je sljedeći korak. Kuda i kako dalje? Mislim da je visoki predstavnik učinio prvi korak u dobrom smjeru, riješio je jedan problem u dijelu jednog entiteta u Bosni i Hercegovini. Međutim, Bosna i Hercegovina i visoki predstavnik nije ovdje samo zbog Federacije Bosne i Hercegovine i da rješava probleme jedne političke stranke kojoj je to životni problem, a evo sad smo vidjeli da se može lako riješiti i da vjerovatno više neće biti problem. Nego je visoki predstavnik za cijelu Bosnu i Hercegovinu. I ono što mene brine je kako će visoki predstavnik pomoći Bosni i Hercegovini na njenom putu ka euroatlantskim integracijama. Sigurno je da ima i naših grešaka. Dovoljno je reći da eto ta sretna ili nesretna presuda Sejdić-Finci već gotovo 13 godina čeka implementaciju i da bez implementacije, bez poštivanja ljudskih prava u skladu sa Europskom konvencijom o ljudskim pravima, Bosna i Hercegovina ne može dobiti ni kandidatski status za Europsku uniju, a nekoli da se približi kao zemlja kandidat i jednog dana član. Kad ne možeš ući u Europsku uniju, jasno je da vrlo teško možeš ući i u NATO, jer je to dvoje na neki način vezano. A o tome se čini se niko ne brine. Mislim da je dobro da smo prebrinuli jednu brigu, a to je izbori 22. Oni su iza nas, rezultati se manje više znaju ili naslučuju i čini mi se da je ova rasprava pokazala da se niko ne brine zbog tih rezultata, da su oni bili manje više očekivani sa tu i tamo nekim malim ispadima. Međutim je daleko važnije krenuti dalje i što brže, jer očito je da vreme ne radi za Bosnu i Hercegovinu. Ako se sjetimo gdje smo bili prije 12 ili 15 godina, svi će reći da smo bili bliže i Evropi i NATO i svim ispunjenjima tih želja nego što smo to danas. A da bi se danas vratili na pozicije na koje smo bili, ne možemo očekivati da sve za nas uradi međunarodna zajednica ili visoki predstavnik. Moramo i mi da se angažujemo i mislim da ćemo sad prilikom izbora nove vlade morati od te vlade zahtijevati da u svoje ciljeve upravo stavi da nas približi Evropskoj uniji, da nas približi euroatlantskim integracijama. Naravno, Evropska unija niti govori, niti misli jednim glasom. Ko se s tim ne slaže, kao Velika Britanija, izašlo je. Ima i sad u Evropskoj uniji zemalja koje se očito ne slažu sa politikom koju Evropska unija ovdje vodi. Ali mislim da imamo velikog prijatelja u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama i momentalnoj američkoj administraciji koja pokušava da nam pomogne što više i što bolje. Međutim, imamo i nesreću da živimo u geostrategijskim uslovima kada situacija ni u svijetu, ni u Europi nije dobra, kada specijalne vojne operacije koje se drugačije zovu rat u Rusiji i Ukrajini jednostavno proizvodi ovdje jedno čudno stanje i jednu nepotrebnu tenziju. Prema tome, neće se drugi brinuti o nama ako se mi ne pobrinemo sami o sebi, a čini mi se da smo sad na putu da imamo zeleno svjetlo i da možemo da krenemo napred ako se o tome složimo. Ono što nam je bio veliki problem, taj promjena izbornog zakona u federaciji, primjenjuje se samo na Federaciju Bosne i Hercegovine, to nam je riješio visoki predstavnik i naravno možemo da diskutujemo da li je to dobro za jednu, drugu ili treću stranu, ali čini mi se da nije jako loše ni za koga. Uostalom, rješenje koje samo jednoj strani odgovara, a ne odgovara svima, nije dobro rješenje, nego je negativno rješenje. Prema tome, kako se nekad govorilo, treba nam pljunuti u ruke i krenuti dalje u nove pobjede. Hvala.
I'm going to roll up my sleeves right now. But before I do, I'm going to give it the floor. Ivo, you had something you wanted to. Vi imate riječ. Izvolite.
Pa evo, ja ću samo kratko, u stvari ću se nadovezati na ovo što je gospodin Finci rekao. Nama je sada vrlo važan angažman onog što mi ovdje zovemo međunarodna zajednica, dakle Evropska unija, Sjedinjene Američke Države, Velika Britanija, jer našu situaciju treba promatrati iz ove nove geopolitičke situacije koja je nastala ruskom agresijom na Ukrajinu. Ja kad to kažem, jer to što mi očekujemo ovdje od međunarodne zajednice jeste da nas ne ostavi u vakumu između dvije politike, zapadne politike koja se odupire sad toj agresiji i ruske politike koja se provodi sada prema Ukrajini i koja se stalno referira na ove odnose ovdje kod nas, koja ima ambicije, aspiracije i da uređuje odnose i u Bosni i Hercegovini i u nekim drugim državama. Dakle, međunarodna zajednica ne smije više praviti greške koje je pravila, evo o kojima je Krešo Zubak govorio. Ona ovdje mora biti vrlo jasna i mora kazati gdje mi spadamo. A mi hoćemo da budemo dio Zapada, Evropske unije i dio NATO-a. I tu nama treba pomoć jer mi imamo unutarnje snage koje su protiv toga, koje su sada opet dobile zamah na ovim izborima i on će se naći u našim institucijama naše države. Dakle, to je veoma važno sada da bismo mi krenuli naprijed. Ako tu bude jedna čvrsta odluka, jasna odluka, onda je moguće pokrenuti ove procese o kojima je govorio gospodin Finci. I ima još jedna stvar koju je Mladen Ivanic govorio, moram to napomenuti, kad je pominjao jednak odnos međunarodne zajednice prema svim akterima političkim ovdje i tako dalje. Međunarodna zajednica je pravila grešku u tome što je ovdje naše reformske procese mislila da može pokrenuti pregovarajući sa liderima nacionalnih, odnosno nacionalističkih stranaka. Pa je čak njih izvlačila iz struktura sistema, iz struktura društva i države, pa s njima otvoreno ili skriveno pregovarala o tome i naravno pokazala da je to neuspjeh. Međunarodna zajednica mora poštovati našu državu, njen suverenitet i naše institucije. Ona ih ne smije omalovažavati u tom pristupu prema Bosni i Hercegovini, bez obzira sada kako se vlast formira nakon ovih izbora. I ono što je važno, ja sam pisao o ovom o čemu je Mladen govorio, ja sam seriju tekstova napisao o tim izjavama Bakira i Izetbegovića i tako dalje, koji su vrlo neumjesne, politički vrlo štetne i tako dalje. Ali pogledajte šta se desilo. Mi smo stalno vršili identifikaciju njega, SDA i bošnjačkog naroda. I on je sam to radio. A kakav je odgovor dobio od naroda? Narod mu je sada kazao ne, ti nisi naš lider. I to je vrlo važna poruka koju su Bošnjaci kao narod sada poslali na ovim izborima. I to međunarodna zajednica mora uvažiti. Ona mora, ako želi ovdje pregovarati o napretku našem, onda mora pregovarati sa institucijama i s onima koji su građani na građanskim izborima izabrali sada u instituciju. I mora uvažiti ove izborne rezultate. To je ohrabrujuće da su Bošnjaci kao narod zapravo rekli ne toj politici koju je Bakir propagirao u svojoj predizbornoj kampanji. Ja sam slušao neke njegove tamo govore i tako dalje koji su bili vrlo neumjesni, koji su zapravo štetni za njegov narod. I sad mu je narod to dao do znanja da je to šteta. Dakle, međunarodna zajednica mora to uvažiti.
Mogu li da samo nešto? U vezi ovoga što je Ivo rekao, ja bih rekao da rezultati na mjestu glasanja za gospodina Dodika pokazuju da je narod i u Republici Srpskoj rekao ne Dodiku. Možda ne do kraja verifikovano zbog brojanja, ali po broju glasova je definitivno rekao ne. Ja mislim da je to vrlo važan rezultat izbora. A Edvardu bi samo volio da kažem, kad sam rekao jednak pristup, tu sam mislio prije svega o BiH. Edvard je naravno bio vrlo kritičan prema gospodinu Vučiću. Volio bih da je onda barem spomenuo, ako ništa drugo, gospodina Milanovića, koji je zaista imao seriju vrlo blago rečeno iznenađujućih izjava kada je u pitanju region i odnosi u regionu. A boga mi jednim dijelom i neke ljude u Sarajevu koji su maltene Šmita optuživali da je fašista, koji je došao iz fašističke zemlje, a boga mi nisam čuo stepen kritičnosti prema njima te vrste. Dakle, ja ću opet ponoviti, ja mislim da je jako bitno za kredibilitet, nevezano ko je, za iste greške primjenjivati isti pristup prema svim igračima. To je način kako međunarodna zajednica može jačati svoj kredibilitet. Uvjeren sam u to, nažalost, mi smo u prošlosti imali modne trendove. Bilo je moderno nekoga kritikovati, druge prečutkivati, svi krenu da kritikuju to koga je moderno kritikovati. Za dugoročnu stabilnost to mislim da nije dobro. Ne treba tu praviti lažne kompromise. Ko pravi veće gluposti treba i da dobije veće kritike. Ali mislim da je za ovu sad temu nismo imali dovoljno vremena. Mislim da je jako važna, to je za BiH, za stabilnost BiH, kontekst ukrajinske krize, ali ako bude bilo neke druge prilike nekad, mislim da u kontekstu ukrajinskog rata i onoga što se tamo događa će imati ozbiljne reperkusije po BiH, ali to je jedna potpuno nova tema. Ako bude prilike, volio bih i u takvom jednom panelu učestvovati. Pozdrav svim učesnicima i bilo mi je zadovoljstvo biti s vama.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mladen, and thank you for being with us from Montenegro, and really very much appreciated your keen insights. And let me just quickly say about President Milanovic, absolutely, he deserves to be sharply criticized for his outrageous remarks. I would just not equate Croatia or President Milanovic with President Vučić. Why? Because Croatia puts sanctions on Russia and Serbia does not. And that's not just a technicality. Serbia hosts Sputnik Serbia, which gives this Russian propaganda polluting the entire region. Under Alexander Vučić's leadership, his foreign minister signed basically a friendship pact with the criminal Russian regime, with Sergei Lavrov, in front of the entire world at the UN. So yes, outrageous remarks by President Milanovic deserve criticism, but not to be compared with this destabilizing posture, pro-Russian posture of the Serbian president there, which destabilizes this region as well. And I just quickly, we would be remiss just not to mention, Zlatko, I'm going to give it to you, but we didn't mention, we talked about Bečirović and Bakir's loss, and we talked about Cvijanović and Dodik's troubles, but we did not mention Željko Komšić. And anything, but either of you, anyone want to say, or Zlatko, but we have to be very brief. Anything, not that you have to, but anything you want to say about the successive election of Željko Komšić as the member of the presidency?
Željko Komšić je dobio građanske izbore. Ovo su građanski izbori po principu jedan građanin, jedan glas, i ti izbori takvi su propisani našim Dejtonskim ustavom i on je legitiman član predsjedništva sve dok je takav naš ustav. Druga stvar, pogrešna predstava je stvorena kod Hrvata i to je išla propaganda i u Hrvatskoj i ovdje kod nas od Čovića iz Mostara, da je Hrvat član predsjedništva, hrvatski član predsjedništva u predsjednoj državi. To nije tačno, treba pogledati Dejtonski sporazum. On predstavlja državu, a mora biti Hrvat. Dakle, to su dvije razdvojene stvari jedna od druge. I naravno, ima jedna stvar koja je do samoga Željka Komšića kao člana predsjedništva. On mora pronaći kanal za komunikaciju i sa većinom Hrvata u Bosni i Hercegovini i sa Hrvatskom državom, odnosno sa zvaničnicima iz Hrvatske države. I na njemu je ta odgovornost. Bez obzira što oni njega ignoriraju i tako dalje, on mora pronaći kanal, mora naći, ako ne može direktno, mora posredno preko nekih posrednika, taj odnos se mora uspostaviti. On mora raditi na tome u ovom mandatnom periodu. Nažalost, u prošlom svom mandatnom periodu nije radio na tome i to je možda najveća njegova greška. On je državu dobro predstavljao, ali on mora nešto uraditi i da se ovi odnosi između dva naroda, kako mi to imamo običaj, poprave i da se poprave međudržavni odnosi.
Thank you. Ivo, Krešo, please.
Nije replika, ali je dodatak, možda ne u potpunosti. Da, složio se s Ivom u nekim njegovim tvrdnjama, ali bih ukazao na sljedeće. Na sljedeće kad je riječ o njemu. Prvo, on podršku u glasačkom tijelu u kojem se obraća traži na novom konceptu Bosne i Hercegovine koji je potpuno suprotan mirovnom sporazumu postignutom u Daytonu. I vidite, ovo što je rekao malo prije gospodin Ivanić. U kor se upućuje prema političarima koji dovode u pitanje Daytonski sporazum, a njegova koncepcija na kojoj on pridobija glasačko tijelo je sasvim suprotna mirovnom sporazumu u Daytonu. I ne samo njemu, nego i koncept na kojem je rekonstruirana Bosna i Hercegovina poslije Drugog svjetskog rata. Nikoga nije to iz međunarodne zajednice upozorio. Da je njegovo isto tako zalaganje za taj koncept suprotan mirovnom sporazumu. To je. Drugo, ako je on član predsjedništva i treba da predstavlja građane sve, i ako se opredjelje kao Hrvat, to je okej. Ali onda mora i respektirati volju hrvatskog glasačkog tijela. Slagali se mi sa politikom koju zagovara HDZ ili ne, ali to treba respektirati, a ne ulaziti u sukob s tim ljudima polazeći od svojih ideoloških i političkih uvjerenja. Njegova pozicija, on jeste predsjednik stranke koji ima svoj program, ali njegova pozicija člana predsjedništva ne dozvoljava mu, ne mu treba dozvoljavati da on tu poziciju koristi da bi se obračunao sa drugom ideološkom i političkom opcijom.
Understand.
Joseph, before thanking you, and to ISIS and everything, I really want to SAIS and for John Hopkins and for Foreign Policy Institute of SAIS, and to you personally. And of course, I want to thank again to Director and President of the Board of Bosniak Institute for hosting us in here, because as I mentioned, this is not the first time that we are, but the only thing is that I think I've seen here 3 former heads of the state on a screen and in here, and former prime minister. Most of the former heads of states and governments, so current phase, we had usually 2, 3 from Turkey, Norway, Holland, Slovenia, Croatia, Montenegro, Serbia, and here. But this is very impressive event that you put together, Edward. So I want to thank you that. Mladen was right, and I think that he was right when he was saying that it will take decades before we get into European Union. But the good news is that it was told to him almost 20 years ago. It was said almost 20 years ago, so decades already passed. So it's good that they didn't tell him centuries, which means that we are on a good path. That's one thing. Second thing is, I think it is very important to understand that this is two-way street when it comes to European Union and Bosnia and Herzegovina and Western Balkan. Yes, we do need European Union. Yes, we do need integration of Western Balkan, but European Union in this geopolitical strategic situation needs us as well to be part of that very safe space, because in 2030, we will be the same. European Union will be like us, or we will be like European Union. So I think it's in their interest that they don't become like us. So we are like virus, and they are positive virus, we are negative virus, we are bad virus. So it's good that they do that, implement, understand that capacity. I want also to underline we were saying about Schmidt, and I think that Schmidt decision is, as was already said, very positive in certain aspects. And I really call him to continue, as Jakica said, to continue with Republika Srpska, because the good news is that he, let's say, he disassembled a little bit constitutional federation, which means that he has authority to do so. So since he did it, he can do that, maybe fixes in other parts of our part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is not part of literally Dayton Constitution that covers Bosnia and Herzegovina. So if he proceeds in that direction, I would be welcoming him to do so. At the same time, I think it is very important to have a role of Zagreb to be positive in here. I don't make the equation sign. You can make equation sign with Vučić and Serbia, because Vučić is decision maker in Serbia. But Milanović is not decision maker in Croatia, so that's not. And if I can make some some footnote. Milanovic helped to Jakob. We were together in 2010 when he was advocating for him, cheering for him. We were together on stage in here. He was really cheering for Komšic to be elected. And then 12 years later, he helped him again. He helped him by kicking him strongly and actually making these elections to be against, not for. And that was really, I mean, that's the final. And last point, please, we do need United States of America to help us to remain one country, not any type of country, but one country, one multi-ethnic, multi-religious country of cultures and religions putting together in here, being in here like we were for centuries. We need the United States for that. We need the United States to speed our NATO path, but we need European Union to feel the content, help us to feel the content of European Union in this country as well. So it is very important that we have European Union leadership now and now again, not be waiting for America to take leadership, because America is not going to change us without support of European Union. And of course, the last thing is, please do not underestimate what Mladen said. Putin is becoming very serious player in here. He's going to be pressing more and more in here. So more the situation in Ukraine unfolds in any direction, he will come back to Western Balkan, he will come back to Bosnia-Herzegovina. So we should prevent that Putin has his key players in here. Are they in Bosnia, in Serbia, in Montenegro, in Croatia? I don't care. But it is important to stop, for geopolitical reasons of Euro-Atlantic forces, to prevent that Putin has his players here running this country.
Zlatko, very well said. We're going to close there. I couldn't agree with you more. And that makes all the more important for Zagreb to cut the ties completely in any association and support with Milorad Dodik. So that has got to stop. I want to mention my own thanks, Zlatko, to you and our esteemed director here for the use of, again, of this stunning, historic hammam here in Sarajevo, Adil Zulfkarpasic Center. And I want to thank my colleagues at Johns Hopkins SAIS in Washington, who have done absolutely fantastic work working with the great technical team here, giving us the support. And I want to thank my wife, Eva, who's back there in Washington, for all her support on this. And finally, this is just the beginning. So those of you watching, this is the beginning of a conversation, an urgent conversation that needs to be had. And we hope others out there will organize their own discussions like this with their own selections of participants. But I could not be more pleased with the outstanding conversation discussion that we've had. I'm going to begin with Mladen Ivanic, who's the furthest from us. Mladen, thank you so much from there in Montenegro. We hope Montenegro will become actually a European Union member in the near future. And I'm going to just go in order here. Krešo, thank you so much for being with us and enriching this discussion. Jakob, Yom Tov, Yosh jedan put. We will see each other at the historic synagogue shortly. And Ivo, again, my thanks to you. Finally, Zlatko, please, you've been a collaborator on all this, and thank you again for your support. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you watching, those of you who are here, puno hvala svima koji su ovdje I koji su online. And I'm going to sign us all off from here from Sarajevo. Thank you very much for joining us today. Edward P. Joseph of Johns Hopkins SAIS FPI. Thank you so much.